This week's class is all about the higher heart, the sacred heart, the heart that we connect to, that really brings the messages of our soul through. And what I want to do in today's 45-minute class is just talk a little bit about what that is, where it is, and ways that you can work with it and access it right now. And then what my guides have asked for is that we talk about, in terms of the Akashic records, how it was affected in the past life, present life, and we may even be able to get into the future life as well. So I've got a lot of interesting things to cover. So the first thing I'm going to do is ask you to breathe, focusing on that breath, bringing it up from the solar plexus, out through your mouth, and breathing. And just really give some gratitude for the way that our internal systems work and the oxygen and the air that we breathe and how it nourishes us. And what this is starting to do is actually open up this higher heart. The first thing to know is the higher heart kind of sits here, above the physical heart chakra and just below the throat chakra. Some people call it chakra 4.5 because often the heart is 4 and then the throat is 5. And that makes total sense to me because when we can feel what it's working with, we can see the importance of it. Some people call it the ascended heart. And then on a clinical level, it's connected to an area of the body known as the thymus. And what you often will find is that sometimes when people have something emotional or they go into shock, it's, oh my goodness. And they kind of cover this area to protect themselves. So that's the way that the higher heart can communicate when it needs help and assistance. One of the main things that I'm educating people on working with the higher heart is because it's directly connected to our immune systems, to our lungs, to our throats, to those areas which after 2020 and going through, and we're still not out of our COVID aspects, this is an area when we focus on healing this with spiritual, emotional aspects. It really helps us on that physical level as well. And I even know sometimes when my higher heart is what I call working overtime, is I just kind of touch or tap in across here, and it just feels a little bit what I call tender, or it's just a little bit sensitive. And even with some things of foods and drinks, this is where I come out with what I call red blotching sometimes. And again, that's because my heart is just processing something. So I'm learning as I'm going through with this. The ancient Egyptians knew a lot about this heart. And this is why I believe in many of the amazing pictures on the papyrus that we see. If you just Google an image of a famous priestess papyrus, you'll often see that she has her hands like this at the front of the body and at the back of the body. And what I came to see was it was almost like she was healing my heart here, but then she was healing my heart there. So when you're starting to think of this whole area, it's not one or the other, it's all connected. And if you close your eyes ever and you see in meditation, you may start to see this higher heart area in what I've seen is teals, turquoises, that kind of greeny blue. I've often seen the emerald green. And if I was working with my Andara glass, this is kind of the color that I've sort of seen. Or we did have, if you've had any of the pieces from us, it's like that teal color. So if you're doing some color healing or color therapy, what is an amazing thing to use is, like I've got my jade pendant on today. with it being Chinese New Year. And I've also worn green outfits, green scarves, and that's brought a lot of healing and also protection to that area if I've been going through some changes. The higher heart stores key wisdom, and it stores the energies of compassion, forgiveness, joy and peace, serenity, unconditional love, and then the one that we sometimes don't like to look at, which is our patience. And this is why I will always say to people, if you're getting a few palpitations, or you feel that your heart's racing a little bit, or you have this kind of stress or nervousness at the moment, bringing in an activation of that higher heart, or bringing that serenity and patience, it kind of opens up that energy field so that that heart that can be very, very delicate has a chance to catch up, has a chance to hold its place and heal. And if you are a healer out there, which I know many, many of you are, well, I'm just going to say this, you're all healers and you all heal in very different ways. You may find that at this time, a lot more people are connecting with you and that you're helping them unblock these things around their heart. I know especially leading up to this class this week, I've had a lot of clients reach out, and normally going into a Valentine's Day week, we have many requests of people, oh, when will my soulmate arrive? What about my twin flame? Where is my love? This week, people have kind of been very much more proactive on how can I heal my heart? How can I heal the hearts of my children, maybe my partner, my friends, my family? So this is where I would say if any of you have healing hands, positive thoughts, whatever it is that you do, start creating those healing spheres, putting your love and light in it, and sending it out into the world, wherever it needs to go. And when you're sending it out with unconditional love, remember it will sit in the sphere of the person that needs it until they're ready to accept it. So a lot of people will say to me, well, what about their free will? And I will say, when it's ready to be received, then it's like that beautiful light. So if throughout today's class, there's someone that maybe you want to send this to, then please, on this day, feel free, start sending out that love energy. If you do any toning or with tuning forks, taking it around this higher heart level, and I would often say, choose how you wish to take that around, but often if I'm working here, I'm going in a clockwise direction and I'm focusing on the energy all around this. You can tap on this area. I remember a long time ago, tapping was very powerful. I didn't quite do the certain areas of the full modality, but I do know that if I get stressed or I'm on a flight or something that I'm going on a long journey or I'm getting ready to speak in front of a group or a training class, I'm just kind of tapping my heart just to kind of let it know that I'm there with them. And you will always find that if you have a drum, they're amazing, amazing tools of just bringing in the tap of the drum and having someone match that with their breathing. And it's amazing how people can then calm. Their immune systems are not on what I call fight or flight, and the healing can really start. If you like to use oils, one of my best ones is to use a rose oil. So if you have some rose oil, rose water, rose sprays, that's amazing from opening that heart up. And we actually had someone that found chakra tea. So she presented us with this amazing chakra tea, which carries rose quartz, love, and forgiveness. Of course, you don't always need a specialty tea, but you can place healing and light into the tea, especially if it's a hot tea or you're putting some honey into it. And as that's going down, it's healing all of that area as well. So there's many things that you can do. I'm often asked in the shop what crystals we would recommend. And like I said, I will often go for the turquoise, but I also use kyanite, rose quartz, and another one that looks a little like rose quartz that I favor, which is morganite. And then, like you all know, I love my Andara glass, and I also love the Herkimer diamonds as well. I find that they're very healing for that. But anything in that kind of bluey green family, or the love crystals, as I call them, like the rose quartz, you can create a pendant from that or place that close or on your nightstand, so it's giving you that healing presence, especially when you sleep. What you're looking to do as well is lift your energy and lift your frequency. Sometimes what can happen is many of us find that amazing heart opening when we start on our spiritual path. And for some people, it actually awakens just after they've had a near-death experience. Or, as I'm slowly finding, after women have given birth to children, it's like their heart kind of expands. So, whichever way that it is for you, or your Kundalini energy is rising, just pay attention to what it feels like sometimes with your heart closed or your heart open. When I first discovered that I had some issues with my higher heart that weren't just of going through relationship changes, leaving from jobs, moving away from parents and family, one of my most heart opening actually happened for me in a temple called Edfu. Edfu temple in Egypt is the temple of Horus. It's a very masculine temple. When you go in, it's almost like, oh, where is this place? Because you've been going through the temples of Philae and Dendera, and they're soft and gentle. And then you come into this very strong, dynamic temple. And there was one day that I found myself in one of the small rooms, and I saw a small hole in the wall. And I had a whole Akashic story of the initiation temples and the initiation chambers. And many of you may have read about certain ones, especially the famous one at the Temple of Komombo, where you did the initiation of the crocodile. Some made it through, some didn't. And it was at that point I remember looking and seeing this past life and feeling this heartbreak. And what I realized was that all the way through my life this time, there'd been something missing. And there was this fragment that brought me back to myself. And I actually wrote a little bit about it in the Oracles of Egypt book. And if you've had connections to those temple times, or you've gone through Rome or Atlantis, when you've been in those times of warrior, a lot of us, our souls and our chakras, lost little pieces of ourselves. They became fractured. And I know myself, I've probably spent most of this lifetime building my root, my sacral, my solar plexus. Yeah, my third eye's great. But it was at that moment, this heart pain and sorrow came across me. And it took many, many times and journeys and taking people back to that temple and introducing them to themselves that began to heal that for me. And I always remember my amazing teacher. She was called Isis. It's Shambhala in Glastonbury. And today actually was her birthday. So I feel that she's here present, even though it's in Sedona. She would have loved this. And one of the things we used to do when we would visit Edfu was one of the large Horus statues, the statue of masculine presence. And it was interesting because it was as if his heart had been carved out. And she would encourage us all when we walked past to offer love and put the heart back into Horus. So that was one of my favorite things that I carried on to do. And in recent times, the journeys have not been as challenging because I claimed that higher heart energy back for myself. Like I said, many of us fractured, splintered in times of war and challenge. One of the most challenging ones for me to ever deal with was dealing with the World War I, World War II, and the souls that went through the atomic wars over in Asia. Because when the body has been splintered, as I would say, it takes a long time for them to regroup and come back together. And often it's building the energies back, and the higher heart is often the one where that trust and love is missing. You can also have had heartbreak. You can have unrequited love in the past life records. And sometimes that will lie there dormant, not raising its attention. But you start to, on your spiritual journey, realize that there's something maybe missing. What I'd like to do now is take you into a very small mini past life regression, just to explore if there's anything there on a certain level that needs to be healed to bring back that love in your heart. So again, just start taking some gentle cleansing and healing breaths. Closing your eyes when you're ready. Just breathing very gently. And start seeing positive energy come through from your feet, all the way through your chakra column, that root, sacral, solar plexus, the heart. And then just allowing that energy to move through that higher heart. And if you wish to open that a little wider, start to think of things that you are grateful and you have gratitude for. Just feeling that gratitude come in, and then moving your awareness to your throat, your psychic senses, and your soul star above. And I invite you to come now on a little journey into an ancient past timeline. Create it from imagination, memory, the Akashic records. And begin by creating an old wooden door. Somewhere that can take you into a past timeline where perhaps your heart, your higher heart, found some disconnect, some pain, some heartbreak that needs to be healed and cleared today. It may be yours, it may even be an ancestor's, but giving yourself permission, and when you're ready now, opening that door and stepping back, please, into a timeline where part of your heart needs to be retrieved and healed. And now you find yourself in that timeline. Pay attention to where it is that you've come into. Looking down at your feet to anchor you, and looking at the surface that you've come to. Looking at the environment that's in front of you. and asking yourself first, where on the globe, which continent have you found yourself in? What sort of timeline is this? And allow your right brain to access your imagination, to bring through on a clairvoyant, sentient, audient, cognizant level any of the information that you need. Do you feel male or female? Do you feel young, middle-aged, or old? Just taking yourself into the discovery of where you are. And being the spiritual seeker that you are, take yourself to that timeline of events and purely observe. What happened to you? What happened to your heart? And with the knowledge and the love and the compassion that you have, understanding why that occurred or that happened. It may have been that that was a timeline, a lesson to learn, an understanding. It may have even been out of your hands and your control. Allow yourself this gift of completion and healing. And within the Akashic Records now, releasing any emotional, spiritual, mental, and physical contracts, curses in that timeline, to know that that was a past life, but you're here now in this present. And calling all parts of your divine self back now, bringing that divine healing back to yourself, to bring that higher heart complete. Taking a deep breath and just blowing out anything that no longer serves. Letting it go. And then when you're ready, coming back, closing that wooden door behind you, bringing yourself back into this presence, back into your body, into the room, and on 3, 2, and 1, when you're ready, eyes open. Just take a little minute just to maybe jot down the notes, because what you're doing is you're anchoring the Akashic record back in, and you're signifying that you understood what was there, what was going on, what was happening. If you find yourself yawning, tears, even perhaps coughing, it just means that things are being released. And as with any past life regression, just knowing that Small things can come up in the days in the future. Just being gentle with yourself, bringing your angels in. And what I also did was I did do 3 cards before we started. And the first card, it's a very powerful card. It's the Curses card from my Akashic Oracle deck. And I wondered at first why I put this in the deck. It was simply a case of, oh my gosh, that's a little bit scary sometimes. But the one thing that I know is that curses, contracts, conditions that we have written in our past lives, in our Akashic records, when they're there, unless we address them, look at them, understand them, make our peace with them, they will always sit there. So I asked then what we would use, and then, of course, it was the heart chakra. And I love to think of this heart as in the heart chakra, but then going through into the higher heart as well. What that leads us to, another wonderful card that I absolutely love this card because it's love, it's 22, truth and trust. So when you're working with this class, these are the frequencies that we're working with. And I also want to say with this love card, pay attention to the pictures of things that come through. You'll sometimes notice that there's what I call dark clouds. And if I pay attention to that with a client when I'm reading, it's often that, the dark clouds are behind you. You're stepping forward into that love and light. So those are the 3 cards that we're working with, and that is kind of the message that can be coming through. If you perhaps don't want to go into the past life, another way to connect and access that higher heart is through channeled writing. And what I always say to people around this time of year in the February, when for many of us, if we were out and about every day, we'd be seeing the flowers, the gifts, the enormous teddy bears everywhere. And what we're seeing is an outpouring within the world of love, messages of love. And what I always say is that starts with ourselves. It starts with us. And what I often will say is when you can, to write a letter to yourself. And what I would say is if you have time now, just taking your pen to paper, and if you had to write a short note to yourself, to your higher heart, to tell them how safe they are, how much you love them, how connected you feel, what I would say is we're going to do that now. With channeled writing, please remember, it's pen to paper. We don't stop. We don't spell check. The punctuation can be terrible. But when you're writing from that heart frequency, you're writing. So, pen on paper and start to write, please. And just for 2-3 minutes, I'm going to hold space and send some heart and love energy to you, and sending all my librarian gifts. And just keep pen to paper and writing for a few minutes. You'll be surprised what comes through. And if you feel that you want to continue this on, simply hit the pause and carry on writing. If you can get up to around between 1200 and 1500 words, either handwritten or even on the computer, it's considered that this is a channeled piece of writing. So if I'm writing my book, I will sit down and I will write for probably 45 minutes to an hour, and it's just information coming through. Just please remember that the editing process is super easy to find experts to help you with, but you'll be surprised at the depth and the beauty of the information that you can really bring through when that left side of the brain goes away and the right side connects in, especially in that higher heart, because sometimes we forget to tap into that energy, and they have the most amazing energy and insight in this special part of yourself. Another thing that can bring healing in your present timelines is going out into nature, just being grateful for being here on the earth at this time. I know many people are being hit with various different types of weather, but when you do get the opportunity, nature can really bring that healing through. And a lot of my healing and my help comes from my animals, my little puppy and my two black cats. They bring me unconditional love. And even on my darkest days, sometimes just by being with them in their presence and their love and their innocence, it really opens my heart. One of the last things that I want to look at is the future timelines. And a lot of people, we've got enough going on in the present timeline. But what I'm encouraging a lot of people to do now is to look into the future timelines and retrieve some information that they can bring back into this timeline, which brings hope, help, and healing to them. And what I want to do is to just teach you how to go into that timeline. Many people will ask me how I have the gift of prophecy or how my oracle school, how do they see into the future? And what I will often explain is that there are 9 aspects and probabilities. And what we're doing is picking 6 of them, then taking that to 3, then there's 1 most probable. But it doesn't mean to say that it will always happen. But what I'd like you to do is to come with me on a little journey to see what the higher heart looks like in one of the future timelines. Because in the future timelines, it's my understanding, remember, we just went into this age of Aquarius, so we're like this for the next 2,000 years, and we're seeing a lot of aspects of humanitarianism come through, but also I believe that we're going to start to find our light bodies, our chakra systems are upgraded and uploading to a higher frequency level. And this is why I felt right here, right now, then rather doing my traditional relationship workshop, that I wanted to help us engage with that higher heart and to be thinking about it as just as important as any other chakra within us. So the future timeline is very similar to the past, but what we're going to do is we're going to go into the library and we're going to look at the video screen, which is the future timeline technique that I'm teaching at the moment. What I'm finding is with the Library of Light, if I can give people techniques that are different, but are all in a similar area, then it's easier to move through because the left brain's not chattering, saying, where are we going? What are we doing? So once again, if you can, just relaxing and closing your eyes, breathing very gently. Activating that higher heart, And I'm sending the Akashic frequencies through to you now to access a future timeline from now. It can be 20, 30, 40, 50, 100, 1,000 years in the future. And I'd like you to come with me now and enter the Oracle Library. Just gently breathing, closing your eyes as you're comfortable. And now coming through to that library with me. And we open the doors and we see how the library shows for us today. It can be high and low and wide. It can stretch for miles going back. Remember, the Akashic record holds everything. And this is a way that our 3 and 4 dimensional consciousness can process this information. Our intention is to look at the future timeline of how our bodies and our hearts are functioning. And I invite you now to come with me towards a screen where we can see a hologram, a picture of how our light bodies are, how our higher heart chakra is in the future. And you may start to see that you show up as a hologram on the screen and you're noticing your chakras, your root, sacral, solar plexus. It's a little like an aura photography session. And paying attention now to what it is that you're seeing. How are the chakras moving? Have the colors changed? Have the features changed perhaps? Looking at that higher heart, is it bigger or smaller than what you thought it would be? Seeing your light body in the future that can go into the higher realms or dimensions. You may start to see your DNA has changed, that your healing has changed. Just processing that in. Everything and anything else, just seeing how that activates. Seeing yourself in that hologram in the future timeline. And to be of that higher vibration, are there anything else that you need to do that perhaps you could be doing in this timeline? Maybe thoughts, emotions, diets, self-love, self-healing that can take you into that higher vibration. Just allow that healing to occur between you and now and you in the future. And then when you're ready, very, very gently starting to come back out of the library with me, back into the room. And you may even feel that your higher heart has expanded that little bit. Where we were clearing the past before, seeing in the future, all of that light can bring us such hope. And just letting that come back now. Back into the room on 3, on 2, on 1. When you're ready, eyes open and smiling. Just feeling that energy coming through, that gentleness, that softness. Making a couple of notes of things that perhaps you observed of yourself in the future. Looking more into yourself as an energy body now, a light body. And those of you that perhaps are healers, that is a great technique of going into that zone to perhaps see how we do function and how that area of ourselves are healing, what love means to us there. Does it mean the love of, I love you, will you be in a relationship with me? Or I'm loving you and sending you love? Or is it just love? And perhaps that's something more that you want to explore and develop yourself. So now it's that time again where we have to bring a closure through to this. We've taken you through many techniques. We've demonstrated that paying attention to the higher heart is very, very important for us. Not just now, but going into the past and pushing that energy in the future. Don't forget those higher heart, those orbs of light that you can send, and perhaps we can all do one right now. I'm creating my sphere and I'm putting into it green light and heart energy. And I want to send my particular one out into the world for anyone that's feeling alone, lonely at this time, that their heart is a little heavy and they may be missing someone at this time physically because of this timeline of circumstances. So I'm placing my love into that, and then I'm placing that out into the collective consciousness of the universe, into the collective Akashic records, that anyone that just wants to feel a little comfort at this time, they can just feel that love and light coming through to them from my heart to theirs. So thank you for joining me. It's an honor and a privilege. This was our temple training for February, and in March, things are slowly starting to come back online. We still can't necessarily travel, but in March, the 2 classes that we will be doing are going to be the Akashic Records and working with the ancestors. I'm going to be teaching how to clear the 7 generations, not only to work on that, but to understand that. And we're going to be working with the Karmic Board in the Garden Sanctuary of the Akashic Records to help create honoring for our ancestors. And another one of the classes that we're going to be doing is the New Children of Light. I was very blessed to be working with a 2-week-old baby very, very recently, and doing charts for these new little baby star seeds. It's just such a delight for me to be able to do. So we're going to be talking about New Children of the Light and talking about these different generations. So from my heart to yours, take care, be safe, be well, and namaste.